Hey everyone, today we will be learning about double exposure portraits. To begin, I have an essential question for you that I want you to think about throughout this lesson. What does art mean to you? A popular trend today that you might be seeing around social media are these awkward 80s photos. The Jonas Brothers were one of the people that really took this on. They made a bunch of these for releasing one of their albums and getting themselves popular again on social media. Will Ferrell is another actor known for using this style. This was actually created by a photography company from the 80s called Olin Mills. This process is called double exposure, and it's used by putting two photographs together on the same photo. Olin Mills did this with families, with kids, with adults, and whoever else would pay for them. They may seem kind of funny to us, but back then they were a hot commodity. And so today we are going to create our own. Let's look at a few examples that I created. Here's one of my cat, and here's one of myself. I added a galaxy background because I thought it was fun, and I'm going to teach you all how to do that as well. Right now, I want you to go on Google and research Olin Mills 80s portraits. Find one that you like and that you want to use as your inspiration for your photo. Alright, now that we have our inspiration, it's time to take our photos. Go out there and photo shoot your friends, family, pets, and whatever else you think would be a great addition to your photo. It's time to begin the PhotoShop process. Go ahead and open your photos by selecting them and pressing open. Wait for them to load. There they are. Alright, so you should have two photo windows opened up, and now we're going to look at our dimensions on our photo, 42 and 32, and we're going to go ahead and open a new tab and create that to the same dimensions that we just had, so 42 by 32, create, and this is going to be our final tab where we are placing all of our final photos for our final product. To begin, we are going to insert our black background by selecting the rectangle tool and creating a rectangle that covers our whole piece. Pause here and do that step. Now we're going to go back to our first photo, photo number 1, and we're going to remove the background. Begin by selecting the marquee tool and creating big blocks that we will remove all at once. Do this until most of your background is completely black. Get as much as you can with these big blocks. And then we're going to use our lasso tool to get closer to our image, our subject, and create a border around the whole thing. Make sure you start on the outside edge because you want to go around the border, not the subject. What we're trying to do is connect them around so that that whole area will be black as well. Go ahead and press OK. And there we go. Now we're going to deselect that so that we're not stuck with it and switch to our eraser tool. Up in the upper left-hand corner, you have the chance to edit your size and your hardness. We want a pretty big size here to start and about a 50% hardness. Go ahead and get as close as you can, but not too close. You don't want to mess up, and fill in as much as space as you can possibly get. Alright, and then once this is done, we're going to go back in with a 0% hardness and a really tiny size, and then zoom in as close as you can think is necessary, and we're going to try and get as close as we can to the thing. You don't want any white background showing. You want it to look like this object is part of the black background. This step is going to be your longest step, but it's crucial because this is how you're going to make it look really good. You want it to blend completely. See how the 0% hardness kind of gives it a blurry edge instead of a really hard line? It looks more like this was meant to be there as opposed to you just cutting it out and placing it on there. And again, take your time. I know this takes the longest, but it's worth it, and it is the longest step. Nothing else is going to take you this long. So this is most of your project right here. Another tip is for corners like this, you can also go up and change your size to a smaller size, and then you can get more precise. I was trying to do it quick because I wanted it to not be you watching me for like an hour trying to do this, but definitely go up and switch your size if you need to. Pause here and go remove the background on your photo 1. Now that the background's removed, we're going to go press on our quick selection tool and select our whole subject. Just drag it along the subject. Make sure that you're selecting everything. Sometimes, like, see how up on his jacket, I didn't quite get that. I need to go back and make sure that I have that little part. And his head, see that little beanie part? I gotta make sure I get all of it. Once I have my whole figure selected, I'm gonna press Command C and Command V into my final photo tab. Pause here and go select your subject and copy and paste it into your final photo. Now it's time to repeat those steps. Select on the marquee tool and start removing the background of your photo 2. Make sure that you don't cut out anything that you don't want. So I had to switch to a smaller square because I didn't want to cut out the collar. I'm trying to think if I want to use that in my final photo. I'm going to skip the lassoing part of this one and just go straight into the eraser with a big sized eraser, about 200 size and a 50% hardness. And I'm going to go in and get as close as I can, once again outlining that subject. It helps when you get really close because then you don't have to do as much with your 0% hardness. Once I get a good shape that I like, I'm going to go up and adjust my hardness to 0% and my size down to a pretty small one. And I'm going to zoom right up in all close. And I'm going to get as close in there as I possibly can. Once again, removing all of that shiny white and making it look like this head is part of that background. Remember to take your time on this part. If you do mess up, it's nice to take clicks so that you have breaks, so that way if you mess up and you have to undo something, you don't undo everything that you just did, but a small part of it. So make sure that you're lifting your finger up off your clicker as you're doing this. Remember to remove a mistake is Command Z. And there we go. Pause here and go remove the background on your photo 2. Now it's time to quick select our whole subject. Once again, make sure that you're not forgetting anything, especially if something is gray or really dark gray, close to black. The selector might not want to select it. And go ahead and Command C and Command V into your final photo tab. Pause here and go quick select your subject and copy and paste it into your final photo tab. Once we have both of our backgrounds deleted and our photos pasted, it's time to make this final product look good. Go ahead and go up to Edit and Free Transform once you've selected on your layer 1 to adjust the size. And then click on the Move tool to move it. Do this again with layer 2. Move it around, go up to Edit again, and select Free Transform. And change your size. You can make it big, you can make it small, whatever your inspiration photo looks like that you're trying to match, go ahead and try and match that. Then drag layer 2 underneath layer 1 to make it show up in the background. Change the opacity on that layer 2 down to about 50%. Use your judgment on this. It could be anywhere from 40 to 60 depending on what you want it to look like. Go ahead onto your editing tools and change the brightness up. Remember that when you're editing your brightness and your layers, if you do it to the topmost layer, it'll edit everything. So right now I'm just editing layer 2. Making it more contrasted makes it look like darker and makes it blend into the background a lot more. It makes the shadows stand out. This bell curve, you can also make it really deep. I just started learning how to use this bell curve, and in order to do it, select points throughout your photo. So each point represents a part of your photo. So if I selected it in the middle, then I could edit the right side of the photo, or I could edit the left side. If I selected about 8 points, then I could edit all of them. You can also update the saturation and the hue and the brightness and the lightness. I like to keep the lightness down so that my background stays black. If you bring the lightness up, it turns kind of gray. You can also add a photo filter. I like the warming filter because it gives it more of an 80s look. You can take the filter to a really deep density, which makes it show up more, or you can keep it at a lower density where it doesn't show up very much. And now if I edit layer 1, it's going to edit the whole photo. So before I was just on layer 2, so it was just editing that photo in the background, but now it's editing the entire piece. Once again, you can go ahead and play with the curve. The curve is really hard to master, so if you don't want to add anything on your curve, don't worry about it. It just helps it to make it really dark and blend in with the background a lot more. See how I added all those points and then you can adjust them? That's the best way to do it. And then you can go ahead and add the same filter. That way your two photos look like they're from the same piece. And voila, we can call it done here. Or we can also go ahead and add a background instead of a black filter. For example, if you want to add a galaxy background, just insert it into your piece and drag the corner to make it as big as the entire background. And then you're going to want to move the layer so that it's on the bottom, below everything else. That way your other two photos stand out. Then you can go ahead and adjust the brightness on your background, make it either light, dark, whatever you want. You want your second background photo to look like it's translucent almost, that it's mystical. So whatever makes it look good. You can also play with the black and white filter. I never really use this one that often for these photos because I like them when they have their color. You can add back on that warming filter so that your background matches your photos. And you're done. Go ahead and pause here and go edit your final photo. Now we're on to the last step, which is exporting our final photo. Go ahead to File, Export As, let it load, make sure it's a PNG, and then press Export. Title it whatever you want, but 80's double exposure photo would work best probably so that you can find it. Press Save. And you're done. And this is what your final photos should come out to look like once they're exported. Go ahead and send these in to me whenever you finish. Thanks for tuning in today.